The Ahsoka finale is here. This is a series that started a little rocky, but grew on me more and more each week. I definitely have thoughts and frustrations about the finale and how everything ended, but I also had so much fun watching it. I was hoping things would be wrapped up a little more for reasons that I'll get into, but the teases at the end for what I assume will be a second season were pretty awesome with lots of potential. That's my short review. I loved watching it, but it didn't leave me feeling a whole lot of resolution, so let's just dive into this scene by scene. Thrawn prepares to depart Peridea using the Eye of Sion, but sends two TIE fighters to continue slowing down his Jedi enemies. I really liked his determination to never again be beaten after underestimating Force users before. Those little flares of emotion in the Grand Admiral always stand out. Morgan Elsbeth then gets to level up her D&D character, upgrading her look and getting a new magic item. But seriously, I loved that scene. It's a ritual we've seen before in the Clone Wars with Asajj Ventress, but seeing the actual green flame magic of the Great Mothers and learning how Night Sisters get the black marks on their faces, I thought it was awesome. And then seeing the Sword of Talzin, look, I admit this is a lot of Clone Wars fan service, but it worked for me, because I loved the fantasy side of Star Wars, and this series is leaning all the way into that. I grew up reading the Chronicles of Narnia before I ever knew what Star Wars was, and here we have a title that's obviously referencing The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Back with all our Jedi, Ezra builds himself a new lightsaber, and I really felt for Huyang as all of his organized parts were moved around. I've got mixed feelings about Ezra making a new weapon. I loved him refusing one last episode and relying purely on the Force, and a blaster eventually. I thought it really made him unique as a Jedi, and it just looked cool. But on the other hand, Ezra building a new one that's a mixture of his own design and Kanan's was a touching moment. I wish it had more time to breathe, but hey, they are on a ticking clock. We also learned more about why Ahsoka walked away from Sabine the first time, basically fearing that she was training so she could take revenge on the Empire for what happened to Mandalore, which all makes sense, but I think that would have been a more effective scene between Ahsoka and her Padawan instead of Huyang just telling Ezra and the audience about it. That seems like the kind of reveal that should have involved the people who were closest to it. But it plays into the following scene, which is Ahsoka illustrating to Sabine that she has become more understanding as a master, and she no longer fears what her student might become. Part of teaching is standing by your apprentice through their successes and their failures. Ahsoka didn't even give Sabine the chance to fail before, and now she commits to be there for her no matter what. So the evolution of their master-Padawan relationship makes sense to me, but I think it could have been communicated way better in a longer scene between just the two of them hashing it all out. The scene ends with Ahsoka encouraging Sabine by saying being a Jedi is more than just wielding a lightsaber, and then Ezra walks out announcing that he finished building his new lightsaber even though he proved he didn't need one last week, which, I don't know, just seems to undercut part of the lesson Ahsoka was trying to teach, but whatever, because that's interrupted by the TIE fighters. And then we get things back on track for the Jedi as far as I'm concerned, because they put their lives and their ship on the line to protect the Noti. Sabine sacrifices their ride to take out the TIEs, slowing down their journey to the Night Sister Fortress. And so Thrawn prepares for the Jedi to make a ground assault because he's still all about slowing them down. And the way he slows them down was just so wild and so fun. First, the attempts to just bombard them with turbo lasers I thought looked great and it was exciting. Jedi riding a bunch of wolves to a literal witch's tower while a spaceship rains hellfire down from above. Yes, I am very much into that. And I love another flash of emotion from Thrawn when they survive. You don't see that guy get frustrated often. But it's his second line of defense that I was more hyped to see. The fight between the Jedi and the Night Troopers was really fun. I liked Ahsoka encouraging Sabine to use blasters to be more effective. They cut those troopers down as easily as anyone would expect. But then the Great Mothers did their magic thing. A lot of fans were wondering if the Night Troopers were all zombies from the start. We were so close, just a couple weeks off. I had given up hope that that would happen, and I am so glad I got to be surprised by it. I thought this was Star Wars at its most insane, and I loved it. When I read Death Troopers all those years ago, I thought it was pulpy fun that would never make it into a wider audience like this. I'm a big zombie movie fan, so this was a great little Star Wars Halloween gift right at the start of October, and I also loved how great the witches looked during the spell. Speaking of Death Troopers, people have been wondering where Thrawn's Death Troopers have been, and we get to see them, and they're also zombies. So they're like double Death Troopers? They are the third line of defense along with Morgan Elsbeth, who Thrawn commands to stay behind to continue to delay the Jedi. And there is an interesting little moment that starts to show that Morgan and the Great Mothers will likely only partner with Thrawn for so long. The Grand Admiral departs Elsbeth saying, "For the Empire," and she whispers, "For Dathomir." Morgan is willing to stay behind, but not for his cause, it's for hers and her sisters. And her second fight with Ahsoka is freaking awesome. I get the slower samurai vibe Dave Filoni was going for in Season 2 of The Mandalorian when they first fought. It was tense, it was cool, but the speed and ferocity in this episode was nuts. I'm glad Diana Lee and Asanto got to go out really kicking ass. She even destroyed one of Ahsoka's lightsabers. Go off, witch. Meanwhile, Sabine and Ezra fight the double Death Troopers, and Sabine finally gets to use the Force, which, for me, that moment fell kinda flat. I figured she would reach this point, but it felt a little cliche for her to find that power because her life was in danger. Ezra's was too, but there was nothing to telegraph that she could all of a sudden use the Force to save him or anything like that. I would have felt that more. It's still a little cliche, but at least it's a Jedi thing to use the Force to save someone else, and it would have felt more in line with what Ahsoka said earlier about a Jedi being more than wielding a lightsaber. I am all for Sabine using the Force, and I love what that says about the Force being for everyone, but there didn't seem to be any moment of realization for her. I think that scene could have been way more powerful. Instead, it just seems like she couldn't move the cup back in Part 3 because she wasn't trying hard enough. What I liked way more was Sabine pushing Ezra to the Chimera, because that was about trust. That was about getting her friend home, and it was something she saw Kanan and Ezra do so often in Star Wars Rebels that they made jokes about it in that series. This would have taken more build-up and confidence from Ezra in previous episodes, but I feel like the super push could have been Sabine's first time using the Force. He could have put her trust in her completely, and she would have been able to dig deep and get her friend home. That would have felt better and more powerful to me. Unfortunately, Sabine can't join Ezra and chooses to stay behind with her master. Ahsoka promised to stand by her Padawan no matter what, and Sabine chooses the same. I liked that moment for their relationship, and they're able to escape the Night Sister Fortress together right when Thrawn orders its destruction, which earns him a look from one of the Great Mothers. This is another moment showing the cracks in their partnership. They're all working together for now, but eventually their separate goals will probably lead to conflict. At the moment, things are working out for them because they all escape, leaving Ahsoka, Sabine, and Huyang behind, with the Noti, who are glad to see them at least. And then the last 10 or so minutes of the episode felt very much like Star Wars Rebels, kinda going through a montage of moments with all our characters where we get some very cool reveals. First, we have Morai the Convor finally popping up for the first time since The Mandalorian Season 2, giving Ahsoka a little hope. I'll have to do a video on her soon. Then there's Shin, who we didn't get to see the entire episode, and she apparently just wants to lead the Nomad Warriors. I think this tracks with her understanding of power, that she just wants to command and lead and dominate others. That's what she thinks power is, but I expect she'll have plenty to learn in future stories. Next is Baylan, walking on a statue looking off into Mordor, some random mountains where something is shining in the distance. And he's also standing on the Argonath, a giant statue of the father who is flanked by the other two Mortis gods, the son and the daughter. So we're probably going to be headed to Mortis sometime in the future. If you're lost, don't worry, I will most definitely do a video all about Mortis as well to fill you in. Just know I'm excited to potentially go back there. I think the show has done a really good job at starting to ease live-action only fans into the really weird and mystical side of Star Wars. It just breaks my heart that Ray Stevenson won't get to see his character through. This was clearly just the start for Baylan Skoll, and I so wish we actually got some answers about his motivations in this season. I'm sure the character has a strong future ahead of him, but I'll continue to say it. Ray Stevenson was phenomenal in this role. He was captivating for every second of screen time, and he deserves all the praise in the world. Back in the known galaxy, Thrawn makes his way to Dathomir to offload the Night Sister cargo. I am so glad he made it away from Peridia. I still think the show would have benefited from having him actually get into a battle with the New Republic to show people who are just meeting him why it's so bad that he got home. This is all working for me because I know the character, but for a lot of the audience, they're just being told that his return will be bad, and they've only gotten a small taste of who he is as a commander. I'm also glad Ezra made it home. Iman Esfandi is so good in this role, I want to see him returning for a good long while. But the scene itself was a mixed bag. I liked the parallel of the Jedi shuttle once again landing on a New Republic ship, but this time there really is a Jedi on board. But exiting the ramp in full stormtrooper gear? Dude, come on, now is not the time for a dramatic reveal wearing Imperial armor on a New Republic ship. The first time Ezra sees Hera in 10 years, she points a blaster at him, and they don't even get to hug? That seemed like such a muted moment when it should have been powerful. I guess that happened often for me in this episode. Moments that should have made me pump my fist just kind of happened. I felt that way in the Mandalorian Season 3 finale too. But I did enjoy the final scene. Ahsoka and Sabine are at peace with one another. Ahsoka specifically is far more optimistic and hopeful about their predicament and about her future and about her past. Like Thrawn taunted her during his escape, there is always a chance that she could wind up like Anakin. There's a chance any of us could give into our darker instincts, but Ahsoka doesn't seem like she's afraid of that anymore. She has come to terms with who her master was. She has embraced the good he instilled within her, and because of that, she is able to see him in the Force. I think the similarities to the ending of Obi-Wan Kenobi actually work pretty well. And here we are at the end. I basically rewatch every episode and write myself through them when I do these review videos. I will admit, I found a lot more that didn't quite work for me in my second watch. The writing and direction just didn't seem confident in what this episode actually wanted to say. Some big moments fell flat for me. I feel like I loved one scene, struggled with the next, then loved the next, and then struggled, and so on. Lots of back and forth. Fortunately, like I said, it still made for a completely engaging episode. I was invested the entire time. I had so much fun watching it and not dissecting it scene by scene, which yes, does count for something. Fun factor is important, and I'm actually really psyched to have a spooky live-action Star Wars episode to put on every Halloween. I am walking away feeling a little frustrated. There were so many teases that are clearly going to be followed up on eventually. At this point, I think my frustrations are more directed at the structure of these 8-episode seasons. It just doesn't seem like enough time to hit on everything the storytellers want to. But I should save that for my discussion on the season as a whole. I think that's more appropriate, and I will be doing a full season review soon. For now, I'm going to wrap up, and we'll all talk more in our live stream after show later today. Let me know what you thought of the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for, yes, even more continuing Ahsoka coverage, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page for video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.